Hi, welcome to Small Things Greatly. I'm Nina, and today we're going to dip some chocolates and make a platter that you can bring to a party, give to friends. I'm going to share some tips and tricks with you for dipping chocolate because I've been doing it a long time and learned a few things over the years. So it's very simple to do. The main thing is that there are different types of chocolate. Some have to be tempered and they're very fussy. That's fine for what that's going to do, but for us, we're just going to really use a simple chocolate today. It's chocolate wafers, and it's going to do the trick, and people will be happy. I don't think you'll get any complaints. Another thing that's important to know right at the beginning, since this is our first show, is that what I'm doing is going by my rules, which I've learned work. It might not necessarily be what you would learn from a book or if you went to a class, but that being said, what I do works. Try it. If you need to tweak it or do something different, that's fine too. Also, you need to always wash your hands, which I've done first, but my mom taught me that a long time ago, so just remember to do that. We're going to start out really simply and just explain from the beginning. You might have done chocolate before, but I'm going to start right at the beginning and explain what you would need to do. So what I use, as I mentioned before, are these chocolate wafers. And the brand that I use is called Merkin's, and I get it locally at Chocolate Works in New Bedford. You can also get this type of chocolate from a craft store or an art store. It's going to come in different flavors. What we're going to use today is a milk, a dark, and a white because those are basics and they work, but hopefully in future shows we can talk a little bit more of different things. And different types that are available. There's also flavorings you can add, and there's a lot you can do, but this is just something to have you try it, see if you like it, and we'll get started. So this Merkin's chocolate, I did try a lot of different kinds when I started doing the chocolates, and we tested a lot of different ones, which was a tough job, but somebody had to do it. So we were happy with the Merkin's. It's made right in Massachusetts, and it melts really well, and I think, like I said, you can use other types. Wilton makes some. Make and Mold has a nice line too, but this is what I use, so take that for what it's worth. You can also get some in the supermarket. They're starting to sell it a little bit more now, and it's just a chocolate wafer that'll look like this, and will easily melt it in the microwave or on a double boiler. So I think that's pretty much the basics, and we can get started. I just use a plastic container like this from whipped topping, just because I have a lot of them and I make a really good dessert with this whipped topping, so I always have extras of these. This is going to go in the microwave, and you're going to pour, basically, you can go kind of to the top when you put this in, because there are going to be little spaces because of the wafers, and we're going to put that in the microwave for just a few minutes. It's going to melt, and it'll just come out a little bit smaller than this. So you'll have plenty of room in case you wanted to add things. Sometimes I'll add different things and make something afterwards. But for now, today, we're just going to dip. So you can use glass also, but I find you get hot spots. So plastic container doesn't have to be something like this, but just basically plastic container. It's going to go in the microwave for 2 minutes. To start with, and I use it at full power, but as you know, all microwaves are different, so you might want to just check and see and go a little bit shorter sometimes. And also, I know I said 2 minutes, but I always do 222 just because that's easier for me. So we're going to do that, let that melt. This is a dark chocolate, and we also have some milk chocolate here and some white chocolate. So I'm going to pour those now while that's melting and get them ready so we can have a little bit of a variety. White, I always use the bigger container because I tend to do more with the white. I end up mixing in peanut butter sometimes. I make a nice bark with that with some fruits and nuts, which is about my only somewhat healthy thing that I do. We can also just add flavorings, but like I said, today we're going to keep it fairly simple. We're going to be dipping a few different things. We've got some chips here, some pretzels, some fortune cookies, sandwich cookies like an Oreo, and then I also do fruits. So I already washed the fruits and I put it on paper towels to dry because you want to have it somewhat dry when you're going to be dipping them. Otherwise the chocolate will slide right off. And I use a toothpick a lot of the time when I'm doing the fruits. And that way when you put it on the platter, people will be able to pick that up by the little toothpick. The strawberries are nice because they've got their own little built-in handle. So you can just take the top and dip that in. And I've also got a neat little trick that I'm going to show you that I use. You can use it on anything, but I use it on the fruits especially. And I'm going to put in half dark chocolate and half white chocolate. It eventually gets mixed in, but for a while you get some really cool designs, and half and half on the chocolate. So when you see it, it looks really neat and people don't know how you did it, but it was really very simple. So I'm happy to share that tip with you. Sometimes when we're doing certain things, you can use a dipper like this, and they come usually in a set of 2. And this is just something that we'll be able to put the Oreo on, dip it in, and take it out. But it just makes it a little easier. Some things, like I said, are a little bit simpler because you can just use your hand and I don't like to cover the whole thing because I like to have it so that you've got part of the chip showing so people know what's under there. Sometimes I dip things completely and I'm at a party and people are like, what is that? I'm thinking, it's an Oreo. You can't tell, but they don't want to be surprised. So I can understand that. I'm going to take that out and maybe put the white one in, and I'm going to show you what it's going to look like. First, we'll check and make sure we don't need to do any more. When it comes out, it's going to still be holding its own shape as the wafers, but it's going to be shiny. And if things go as planned, I'm going to be able to just stir this, and it comes out a little bit. It's not doing it great today, and we're going to put it in for just a little bit longer, but we're also going to put that in too afterwards and see what happens. Just going to go a little bit longer, and I'm going to do this one at half power just for maybe 40 seconds, 44 seconds. See what happens there. I forgot to mention, you might want to just put something down on your work surface so that it's easier to clean up. I just use I use tablecloths that I get from the Dollar Tree, and I cut them in 4. So you can get a lot of use out of it, and you can use it more than one time. Makes it a lot simpler when you're cleaning up. The other thing that we're going to actually be putting the chocolates onto is parchment paper, and you can buy it like this, or you can buy it in a roll. It's not really expensive. This I happened to get after Christmas, so it was 90% off. So I think they're usually around $4 or $5 for something like this, and it has 14 sheets, and they're about the size of a cookie sheet. And I just put that on the cookie sheet, and that's just going to make it easier afterwards if we want to put that in the fridge for a few minutes to harden it up. So that's just the parchment paper that we're going to be using. Let's check on this now and see. It's not great. I'm not sure what's happening today, but it's not really working well. But I'm going to try the white chocolate and see what we can get there. Things don't always go as planned, but we try to make the best of it. I think this is going to be a little bit tough. I'm going to try just dipping it, and you'll see, yeah, it's not going to work. This is what happens sometimes if there's moisture in the air. You can still make it work. It's going to be a lot more chocolate on there. Sometimes I'll do that, and I'll put sprinkles, or I'll drizzle it with another type of chocolate. If it's dark chocolate, I drizzle it with white. Or even a dark chocolate drizzled with the milk chocolate looks nice. It's a little more elegant to me. But you can do it. This has happened sometimes when people use the semi-sweet bits. And you can add a little bit of oil or butter, but I prefer not to do that. This, I'm just going to show you, we can usually get candy sprinkles or jimmies, and it will attach even though it's kind of hard. It should be nice and soft, and hopefully that one's going to do what it's supposed to, so you'll see. I'm going to try one of the chips. We'll just be aware that it might not work. Yeah, it's usually going to be a lot better than that. Okay. Just going to get something over here. I'll be right back. And we've got our milk chocolate that's ready to go. Usually these things can go into the fridge or the freezer, not for a very long time, but it just makes it a little bit solid, helps them set up a little bit better. And if you leave it in too long in the freezer, things can actually crack. Not as much on these things that are dipped, but for the most part, we'll try and stay away from putting it in the freezer. Just the fridge is usually pretty good. And it usually just takes a minute or two for the melting. Let's hope this is a little better than the other one. So it's a little bit bigger container, so I'm not sure if you can see inside there, but basically it's just going to look like it's shiny. It's still going to be having that same form of the wafers. And you can see this one melted a lot better. Now the other thing that I like to do, and we'll do that a little bit later, but I put the chocolate into a bag, cut off the end, and then we just drizzle it. So it's kind of nice. So if I can put this in, have it melt, we'll have some things that are going to be the milk chocolate. We'll drizzle it with this afterwards. So this is not completely melted, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to use this, and you'll see how much easier this is when I dip it and it comes out like this. Not at all like the dark chocolate on the pretzels. These are fun to do like for a party or even a New Year's Eve party. It's just a neat little thing with, I love fortune cookies anyways, so it's just kind of fun to dip them. Put that like that. Now the Oreos I had mentioned, you can either dip them like that, so it's halfway and people can see that it's an Oreo, or sandwich cookie if we don't want to use the word Oreo. But we can also use this. So I'm going to put this in. Like I said, this isn't exactly melted as much as it should. I'm going to hope that it works. So it's just going to go in there, and I use the dipper to kind of push it in, cover it as much as possible, and then I just go like this and try to get the big pieces of chocolate off. Because as much as we love chocolate, we don't want to have it sitting on a big puddle of chocolate, and then when you take it off, it just doesn't look as good. So I'm not sure if you can see, but we're trying to get as much of the chocolate off. And then we put it right onto the parchment paper. Another thing that I do, let's see, is on the grapes. I had mentioned we just use the toothpicks. So it gives you a little handle. And also where the grape came off the stem, I put the toothpick in the opposite side so that you can just dip it right in, and it works pretty well. Strawberries, as I said, it's got the little handle on it, so you can just dip it in. You can go halfway. Sometimes you could do it in the white, then let that harden, go back and do it in a little bit of milk chocolate or dark chocolate, which is nice. Or, as I said before, we can drizzle it. And I'm putting the pretzel in, and same thing, I'm just dipping it halfway and then shaking off the extra. And you can see how much different that is than this. This is the way it's supposed to be. Let's try that milk chocolate and hope that it melted a little better than the dark. You want to use different spoons unless you're going to get that into this and it's going to make your colors different. So you can see it is melting a little bit better. I'm going to put it in for just a few more seconds. Actually, it's going to be fine like this. So you can see how much better that is than this. But this might have just been chocolate that had a little bit of an issue. I'm not sure why. Just to test me out, I guess, on my first show. So this, you can see how much easier this is going to be. I'm going to put that in, and it's really a lot better. And like I said, I don't like the semi-sweet bits. Some people use that. I'm not a big fan of dark chocolate. I don't say no to any chocolate, but if I have a choice, kind of like the milk, and I like some of the other flavorings. But I've just been to parties that they've had the strawberries dipped in the semi-sweet, and it just is just really clumpy. This you can see is really nice, and we're going to let that harden there. I'll do a pineapple to show you. Just going to have to get that in there, the toothpick in as much as you can, because sometimes it's a little bit tough, and these do slide off a little bit, or the chocolate slides off of them. But it's just something that's a little different. A lot of people do the strawberries, and there's nothing wrong with that, but this just adds a little bit to it because people don't usually see the chocolate dipped pineapple or the grapes. I'm going to show you that little trick now, since we were able to have a little success with the melting. So what I do, I put white chocolate on one side, as much as I can. It's going to go off a little bit, but it's going on one side of the glass. And then I'm going to put dark chocolate, the milk, on the other side here. And they're going to blend together a little bit, but for the most part, they're going to stay separate for a little while. And I just love this because it gives a very cool effect. Let's see if I can do this that you can see it. So I'm dipping it in, and when it comes out, you've got a half and half strawberry, which is a little bit different than just the drizzling. And I'm going to, while I'm on a roll, I'll do it with the other one that we have. And that saves you the time of drizzling later, so it works out pretty good. I'm going to put a few of the grapes onto the toothpicks and show you that it works the same way. I don't do it on the pineapple for some reason. I guess it might just be a habit that I did or didn't get into, but it works kind of nice on this. Like I said, the pineapples sometimes fall off a little. Now, as you're doing it, you'll see it's going to start to change a little bit, and it does get a little bit muddled up, but it makes some really cool designs, and sometimes you'll get the swirls like that, and it just looks very neat, and the chocolate with the fruit is even better. Fruit's good, but fruit tipped in chocolate I like even more. And if you wanted to, you kind of could swirl things around. I'm actually going to put this white one, I'm going to go into the milk chocolate, and you can see you just get like a little bit of a double layer there. And then you can do it with dark too if you want to go back. And I'm going to show you what it's going to look like a little bit swirled, because there are some really cool designs in here. And I know it's chocolate and it's not going to stay that way and someone's going to eat it, but sometimes these come out so neat, I don't really want to give them to people to eat because they came out so cool. You get some really neat designs. This one's not doing it now, of course, since I just said that. And the other thing with this is you can always eat your mistakes, so it's a good excuse to have chocolate and do your quality control. I think I'm going to do a little something here. Let's see. I'm just going to twirl it around a little bit. See if I can show you what I was talking about with the swirls. And you can kind of get a neat idea of what it does. Another thing I do on the Oreos, sometimes I'll drizzle a little bit of chocolate onto the top of the Oreo. And if the chocolate is still wet and moist, you can make a little design on the top. Trust me that it would come out better than that, but where I'm doing it here under the pressure of time and making things work, it doesn't always work the way we want to. I'm going to dip a few more of the chips, and then I'm going to put it into one of these bags so that I can drizzle it. I use the freezer bag because it's a little bit heavier duty and it doesn't tend to break, whereas the sandwich bags sometimes do. Cut a little hole in the corner, and then we had done the Oreo here, and I'm going to just drizzle it with this. It's pretty simple, works pretty well, pretty easy. Makes it look a little bit nicer. I'm going to put these into the fridge just for a minute so they can set up and you'll get to see the finished product. Takes a little bit to set up, but not too long. Probably a few minutes will be enough. And you'll find that if you bring these to a party, you'll get invited to a lot more parties. People tend to like a friend that brings chocolate, so you'll get invited to a lot of parties, I can promise you. And the different things that you can dip are endless, but these are just a few to get you started and have you, you can always find your own favorite things. There might be fruits and things that you could try. Like I said, even if something doesn't work really well, it's chocolate and you can eat it at the end, so it's no big deal. It's better if it looks nice too, but that's not always the case. I'm going to try checking on that. It might not be exactly done, but we're going to just get it finished enough so that we can put it on the platter and show you what it looks like and show you that in just a short time, you can get a lot accomplished. This is probably less than a half an hour from start to finish. I do this kind of stuff with kids, adults. Once they learn, they're hooked, and it is very simple to do. I guess that's about it. It's a good thing. It's not, it's not like it's really something difficult. Let's see if we can do this. And you'll see, just going to mention this now because I think it's cool. Sometimes even these little pieces that break off, you can do something with. Sometimes you use them on chocolates and cakes. For the most part, though, it's pretty easy. And it just comes off of this parchment paper pretty simply. Sometimes there'll be little extras that you can just break off if you want. And put them on a nice platter. And for not too much of an expense or time, or a lot of cleanup, you've got something that's pretty nice. Let's get this out of the way so that we don't see all the things that it took to make that. But here's your finished platter. It's fun things anyways and good things that are dipped in chocolate, so now they're even better. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us at studio@latecam.tv. That's all for today. Remember that life is sweet, and I hope that you enjoy every moment. Join us next time on Small Things Greatly.